You know, not gonna lie, Jedi Academy was never my favorite as a kid.
What?
Even when I was 9 years old, I already had mixed feelings on Jedi Academy. Oh, I enjoyed it, but the game just had this fast food, low in substance feel to it, whereas Jedi Outcast felt like this complete and fulfilling experience. But, well, if you watched the last video, the game's poor pacing undermined 2/3 of the experience. So in any case, when I was going back into Jedi Academy about a decade later, I was pretty confident of what I was in for. Hardly any innovation, gimmicky additions, fan service, and a weak shallow story to tie all these unrelated missions together. Poorly. And yes, that's not far from the truth. But at the same time, I also came around to appreciating the things they did change and learn from Jedi Outcast. Though it's not all for the better.
Silence, whelp!
So, how does Jedi Academy learn from its past? And doesn't. Let's find out. There's a universal appeal to school settings, or in this case, the cool school setting. I think the first thing that catches anyone's attention to the game is its title, Jedi Academy. Instantly, it offers players this vicarious experience of rising to become a Jedi Knight, one of the peak power fantasies in fiction. I mean, who wouldn't want to go on adventures across the galaxy and swing their laser swords at galactic ne'er-do-wells? There is a reason why people keep consuming these stories over the years. Schools with its trials and tribulations associated with them is generally pretty universal. And so when you throw in the superpower power fantasy element into it, it's why stuff like Harry Potter and the X-Men hooked so many kids and adults over the decades. Now admittedly, this isn't really a thing that Jedi Academy learned from its past. More so, something unique the team behind the game went with to hook more players in, and with great success. Now what is not a success is that the game doesn't really do much with the whole school setting. Early on, Luke mentions how you'll be studying subjects like diplomacy, history, and more.
You will also study diplomacy, history, and more.
In reality, yeah, you spend most of your time just painfully maiming and killing baddies. In the name of peace and security, of course. Let's be fair though, as neat as it would be to learn galactic history and Jedi philosophy, yeah, no, we're just here to cut up baddies in our way. The team knows what we're here for, and it's to wield one of the most satisfying and awesome weapons ever produced in fiction. And unlike Jedi Outcast, they take full advantage of the very weapon. In fact, the first thing Raven Software learned from Jedi Outcast was to embrace the lightsaber.
I'm gonna get one of those stupid sabers
I wouldn't
and
worry
then...
about that.
One of the biggest complaints about Jedi Outcast was that it took way too long to get your lightsaber. So the developers just hand it to you, right off the bat.
Jaden, hey! I'm stuck!
Yeah. You just start out with a lightsaber. It's a departure from most of the series where you kinda had to work for it. As in, endure a good chunk of shooting segments before finally tasting that lightsaber excellence. Jedi Academy, though, has other ideas.
Jade, see if you can make your way around there.
In the first 10 minutes, you're slicing and dicing jungle beasts, stormtroopers, and even a dark side warrior. Admittedly, I don't have hard data, but over the years, I often hear people say that they fell off from Jedi Outcast because it took way too long to get your lightsaber. And when you throw in the floaty gunplay, the confusing levels that go on too long, and more, I totally understand why people got hooked with Jedi Academy instead. Now, I can see someone arguing that Jedi Academy spoils the players by not making them work for the lightsaber, that there should be this significant jump and shift in gameplay from guns to lightsabers, and thus the lightsaber doesn't feel special anymore in Jedi Academy. I disagree. First off, it means that you would have to play with the blasters in Jedi Academy. And like I said in the last video, The gunplay just feels floaty and inaccurate without the auto-aiming from the older games. It's why one of the least enjoyable missions in Jedi Academy is the one where you're stripped of the lightsaber and forced to use blasters only. Second, the lightsaber in Jedi Academy is just so heckin' good. Besides how the base lightsaber is just awesome on its own, the improvement to the lightsaber combat includes faster animations, there's new moves here, and there's an unblockable special attack. And probably the biggest new additions are the dual sabers and the double-bladed saber. Now, I haven't tried the double-bladed saber, and while I thought the dual sabers were fun, I'm more of a solo type since I think that's just more reliable for most situations, especially saber duels where you want to break through the defenses. Whereas the tacky alternative choices are more fast-paced and meant for groups of saberless enemies. Ultimately, Jedi Academy made the right decision by letting players cut through the waiting line and just give us what we always wanted from these games. And I never got bored of wielding the lightsaber, just because of how awesome it still is. But I think the biggest lesson that Raven Software learned from Jedi Outcast and the rest of the series was realizing that pacing matters. Yep, it's tied back to pacing. And it's where Jedi Academy shines through the entire series. Recap from the Jedi Outcast video. Pacing is about how fast or slow an experience is, and good pacing is if it's engaging enough that you don't sigh and look at the time. And Jedi Outcast definitely had me sighing and looking at the time a lot. The confusing maze-like levels, how they went on too long, the punishing difficulty, and the directionless story in the first 2/3 of the game just took me out of the experience. That is, again, until the third act, where they mostly resolved those problems. They made the lightsaber actually exciting to use without punishing you. They toned down the confusing levels, but most importantly, it had weight and momentum to the story, guiding what you're doing here. As for Jedi Academy, Raven Software took 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards. But let's start with the net positives. Confusing levels be gone. One of the biggest issues I had with the entire series was the level design. Ever since Dark Forces, every game just felt labyrinthian and frequently included puzzles. And I'll admit, my brain shrivels up whenever it comes across a puzzle. I've never been good at them, and I often found them to stun lock any engagement I was having with the game. Now, I'm sure that most people enjoy having their mind stimulated with challenges, but for me, I like having the levels be linear, focused, and mostly absent of progress-halting puzzles. And funnily enough, Kyle does even joke about the puzzles in the game.
The console to unlock the door is probably hidden in some room 12 floors up or something. How does that make sense?
Now, on to the second lesson they learned from the series. Most levels last 10 to 15 minutes long. I know, when you see 10 minutes, you probably think it's way too short. We're so conditioned to think games in terms of hours, and more hours equals more gooder.
I put more than 60 hours of gameplay into this thing.
While shorter equals angry response.
Hey, and make it 4 hours!
4 hours long, sir?
Yes, 4 hours! What do you think I'm trying to do here? Make a fulfilling and satisfying game, you moron!
It's something I'd like to get deep into one day, but for now, honestly, when I play Jedi Academy, I usually never felt like these 10 to 15 minute missions took way too long or were too short. And much of that is thanks to its variety. I'm sure you heard of the phrase, variety is the spice of life, and it's applied here throughout most of the game. Jedi Academy tosses in some new weapons, new enemies, and, the usual follow-up additions. But what shaped my far more consistent enjoyment with Jedi Academy is the diverse mission design. You're often given these different objectives, like planting bombs while avoiding Boba Fett, to stopping a hijacked train, to having swoop bike chase, to scavenger hunting missing components while avoiding being eaten by sandworms, to even escaping a mutant rancor in a docking bay. The list just goes on. And with those levels, it's always a new location with a different look and feel to them. In a way, it reminds me of Dark Forces, how every level felt like it was an excuse to hop from different vista to different vista. Compare that to the other games in the series, where you spend like minimum 2 levels, each about 30 to 40 minutes long, on the same planet, thus making the environments just wear down on you. But Jedi Academy thankfully avoids this trap mostly. And so I overall just can't imagine the folks at Raven Software doing a 180 on the series without recognizing the problems players had with it. From the confusing level design, to the puzzles, to how long the levels went, to the long wait before getting your lightsaber, and so on. I am genuinely glad that Raven Software learned from the past installments and put out the most consistent Jedi Knight game in the series. However, I did say they took one step backwards. Jedi Academy stumbles somewhat in the gameplay department, but it faceplants in the story. Let's start with the former. As consistently more enjoyable Jedi Academy is compared to the other games, it does have some missions that are just duds. So most of the time you're undergoing these self-contained adventures across the galaxy, and for the most part, they're tight and well designed. Short and sweet. But there's some stinkers, like missions without momentum. There's a couple levels where it feels more like you're doing busy work than pushing towards a singular concrete goal. Most of these levels tend to be go plant a bomb here, put a bomb there, place a bomb over there, oh and don't forget this bit here, or be sure to rescue about 16 prisoners, 4 at a time. And these missions are just set in these overly expansive levels, with lots of backtracking. Compare that to stuff like the hijack train mission, where the setting is just intense, and you're pushing towards the end of the train.
That was too close.
You have a goal that you're pushing towards to. Or the mutant rancor level, where you're being chased and you need to find a way to stop the thing by going deeper into the facility. There's just a sense of tension, there's stakes, and forward momentum to missions like these. Can't say the same for these tedious missions.
Only one more.
Next, there's the infamous level where you go blasters only. You're captured and stripped of your lightsaber. Of course, the base commander is so bored, he's happy to pay for all the damage and loss of life by releasing his prisoners in some game of hunt.
It can get dreadfully dull around here, so I'm up for a bit of sport.
Now, the concept itself is actually pretty cool. Stripping a Jedi of their weapon and forcing them to survive without it? That's interesting. Unfortunately, concept needs good execution, and fundamentally, the gunplay in Jedi Outcast and Academy just is too loose and unsatisfying.
Can't escape.
Neat concept, but the foundation, specifically the gunplay, just makes this level a snore. Speaking of snore, the worst offending missions are, unfortunately, the story missions. So, every 4 to 5 missions, you're caught on some urgent mission, 4 in total. And each mission has like 3 to 4 levels to them on the same planet. And those missions can go on from 30 to 40 minutes, which is a far cry from the 10 to 15 minute adventures. So I did feel like the environments overstayed their welcome. But I also didn't find them to be fun. or to be exact, fun halfway in. Because you'll be spending most of your time just killing stormtroopers and reborn warriors en masse, over and over again. One of these story missions can last about 40 minutes, especially the last two story missions that are back to back. I probably killed somewhere between 50 to 100 saber-wielding baddies in the last hour and a half. It's just a jarring contrast from the short and sweet levels that often offered fresh experiences. And now with the story missions, I'm just being reminded of Jedi Outcast with how the levels just seem to go on and on and on. And hey, I have in the past brought up how Jedi Outcast had me engaged thanks to the story and drama driving the last act. So now for the least divisive stance, the story.
Aren't you excited?
It's pretty much agreed that Jedi Academy has a weak story.
That sounds bad.
What's Jedi Academy about? Well, you're some Wunderkind at the Jedi Academy, your friend and rival Rosh is turned to the dark side by a cult, you save him and defeat the cult. That's it. To be more precise with the problems of the story, it just lacks drama and stakes.
No! This is impossible.
What does the main threat of the story want? This Sith cult just wants to suck up the Force energy and use it to resurrect some Sith Lord? Yeah, really. That's a goal the baddies are working towards, and that you have to stop. It's not even like a cool or creepy cult that's doing some unnerving cult stuff. They're not abducting people, sacrificing them, or indoctrinating them to become followers. They're just a bunch of masked dark side warriors sucking up Force energy in places like Hoth, just because Luke was there in episode 5. And at the end, you're just fighting some hilariously cheesy ghosts. The whole thing just feels like they really scraped the barrel for the story's conflict. But this may sound crazy, and yet, I think the biggest missed opportunity was not focusing on Rosh more.
What?
I know lots of people find him insufferable, but personally, I don't think he's insufferable. I just find him a wasted opportunity to make us care about him, and thus serve as emotional conflict in the story for your character. The game doesn't do a good or even decent job of making you care, even though Jaden does.
Rosh? Where is he?
Despite Rosh being whiny and even put your life in danger during training.
Hey Jaden, this should keep you busy till I finish the course.
Despite you two training under Kyle, you actually never go on any missions with Rosh. Now, I'm not going to go into some how I would fix Rosh in any real depth, but basically, the drama and real conflict shouldn't be about some evil lady wanting to resurrect some spooky ghost. Instead, it should have focused on Rosh, his relationship with Jaden. They should have made us pity him more. Maybe there's a reason why he's trying to suck up to Kyle so badly. Like maybe he disappointed his parents, he didn't get enough attention growing up, or something. Instead, all we know is that he's impatient, he doesn't like Kyle for holding him back, he goes evil, but then later admits he joined the dark side because he was afraid?
Jaden, I was scared. You have to believe me. We're friends, remember?
And so, when you do decide whether to spare Rosh or not, it's not surprising that some people just joined the dark side solely because they found Rosh so annoying.
Jaden, no! Ah!
While most just spared him not because they feel bad for Rosh, but because it's just a standard boring Jedi protocol thing to do.
You're right. I almost let my anger get the best of me. Let's get out of here.
You Jedi are blandly predictable.
In any case, Jedi Academy really dropped the ball when it comes to the less well-designed levels, and especially the story, with its weak conflict and drama.
This is impossible. I will return, Jedi. One day I shall return and annihilate you all.
But in spite of that, I had good, dumb fun with Jedi Academy. Oh god, oh god. Oh god.
Are all Jedi this week?
And I'll admit, Jedi Academy didn't have this satisfying feeling that I had with Dark Forces, Jedi Knight, and Jedi Outcast at the end. There wasn't this sense of overcoming some grand threat, avenging your father and becoming a Jedi Knight, or stopping the destruction of the Jedi Academy and hooking up with your partner. Jedi Academy, nah. You stop the spooky ghost who just returns back to a statue. Rosh gets a new arm, which kinda defeats the whole tragic scene earlier. And Kyle teases you with more adventures across the galaxy.
There's still a galaxy full of trouble out there. Are you ready for another mission?
As luck would have it, I am.
It doesn't feel like much was really accomplished or that your character really changed much, besides, leveling up? So, narratively, Jedi Academy is a step back when it comes to the story. That and a handful of subpar missions that run out of steam. But when it actually embraces the lessons it learned from the series, giving the players the lightsaber from the start to avoid the underwhelming gunplay, the short and sweet experience, and just entice people with the School of Cool setting, I think the positive lessons ultimately outweigh the missteps. And I'm just really thankful that the developers can be introspective, reflect on the past, and learn from it by addressing them for the better. And with that, the final video to this admittedly ad hoc series, focusing on the Jedi Knight games on a whole, is up next. I'm Sam Blips, and thanks for watching. Hey there, I want to again thank my Patreon supporters, LD Claudius and Nati, for backing me on Patreon. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing to me on YouTube, and if you can, please support me on Patreon. Have a good one.